Hello guys, what's up? This is Sir EJ and welcome again for another math tutorial. In today's topic, we will be discussing how to illustrate quadratic equations. Before we proceed with our main topic, let us review first what is a polynomial. When we say polynomial, it is an algebraic expression that represents a sum of one or two terms containing whole number exponents on the variables. To understand more about polynomials, I have listed here some examples of polynomials based on the number of terms. First example is 9, and the number of terms is equal to 1. Second one, we have the polynomial 4m, which has a number of terms which is also equal to 1. We have an example of polynomial 4y minus 2, which has 2 terms, x squared minus 17x, which has 2 terms, 5a squared minus a plus 1, which has 3 terms, 12b minus 4 plus 2b squared has 3 terms, and negative 11c cubed plus 3z plus 8 minus z squared has 4 terms, and d to the 4th power plus 3d plus 9d cubed plus 5 minus d squared has 5 terms. So these are some examples of polynomials based on the number of terms. For our next activity, we will identify the different types of polynomial. So for this activity, I have listed below the different types of polynomials, and you will try to answer the following questions based on the given choices. Number 1. It is a polynomial with one term. Alright, very good. The correct answer is monomial. Next, number 2. It is a polynomial with two terms. Alright, very good. The correct answer is binomial. Number 3. It is a polynomial with three terms. Alright, that is correct. The answer is trinomial. Next, number 4. It is a polynomial with more than three terms. Alright, very good. The correct answer is multinomial. So these are the different types of polynomials based on the number of terms. Monomial, which has one term. Binomial, which has two terms. Trinomial, which is a polynomial with three terms. And multinomial, which is a polynomial with more than three terms. Next thing we need to know before we proceed with our main discussion is the degree of a polynomial. When we say degree of a polynomial, it is the variable with the highest exponent. So for example, the polynomial 5 has a degree of 0 or no degree because its exponent is equal to 0. So automatically, if the polynomial has only the constant term, then its exponent is equal to 0. Therefore, the degree is 0 or no degree. Next example, the polynomial 4n has a degree of 1 or first degree because its exponent is equal to 1. It has a variable n, therefore it has an exponent of 1. Then, next one, x squared minus 10x. So we have two terms here, therefore it is a binomial, and we will look at the variable which has the highest exponent. In this case, the variable with the highest exponent is equal to x squared. So what is the exponent of x squared? The exponent of x squared is equal to 2. Therefore, the degree is 2 or second degree. So that's it for the degree of polynomial. You just need to look at the variable with the highest exponent. For example, we have x cubed plus 10x. Therefore, the degree of polynomial will be equal to 3, the variable with the highest exponent. So I have here different examples of polynomials and different examples of polynomial equations. As you can notice, the only difference is when it comes to polynomial equations, it is just equated by 0. X squared minus 10x is an example of polynomial, while x squared minus 10x is equal to 0 is an example of polynomial equation. So that is their main difference. So the difference between polynomials and polynomial equations is polynomial equation is equated by 0. Next one, let's try to group the following polynomial equation based on their degree. So which of the following polynomial equation has a degree of 1? So the first one will be 4y minus 3 because the highest degree or the degree of polynomial here is equal to 1. So 4y is the leading term which has an exponent of 1. Therefore, the degree is 1. And also we have 5x is equal to 0. This is also example of polynomial which has a degree of 1. And then for the degree of 2, so we have x squared minus 10x because the term with the highest exponent is x squared and the exponent of x squared is equal to 2. Then we also have 12b minus 2 plus 2b squared is equal to 0. As you can see, 2b squared is the leading term, the term with the highest exponent, and its exponent is equal to 2. And also we have 8a squared minus a is equal to negative 15. So the leading term will be equal to 8a squared, and the highest exponent of the leading term is equal to 2. Therefore, it belongs to this table. So based on our review, let's answer the following questions. What do you call those polynomial equations with degree of 1? Alright, very good. The correct answer will be linear equations. How about the polynomial equations with degree of 2? Alright, that is correct. It is called quadratic equations, and that will be our topic for this first grading period, quadratic equations. So let's have the following objectives for today's topic. The first one is we need to identify the quadratic equation. The next one, we need to write a quadratic equation in standard form. And the last one is to tell whether each equation is quadratic or not quadratic. When we say quadratic equation, it is a second-degree polynomial equation in one variable that can be written in standard form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a is not equal to 0, then a, b, and c are also real numbers. So these are examples of quadratic equation. 4x squared minus 10x plus 7 is equal to 0. 5a squared minus 15a is equal to 0. 12b plus 2b squared is equal to 2. So these are all examples of quadratic equation because it has a degree of 2. The highest degree of polynomial is 2. Therefore, it is a quadratic equation. Also, it is equated by 0. So it must be equated also by 0 to say that it is a quadratic equation. The following examples here are not examples of quadratic equation, mainly because the highest degree of polynomial is not equal to 2. On this example, x cubed, the exponent is 3, so therefore it is not a quadratic equation. In this example, m plus 7, the highest degree of polynomial is only equal to 1. So therefore, it is just an example of linear equation. So let's try to answer the following question. Tell whether each equation is quadratic or not quadratic. X squared plus 4x plus 9 is equal to 0. Is it a quadratic equation or not quadratic? Alright, very good. The correct answer is quadratic. How about y squared minus 6 is equal to 0? Is it quadratic or not quadratic? Right, that is correct. It is also quadratic because the highest degree of the polynomial is equal to 2. How about b squared minus 4b to the fourth power plus 6 is equal to 0? Is it quadratic or not quadratic? Alright, very good. The correct answer is not quadratic because the leading term of the polynomial is negative 4b to the fourth power. Therefore, its exponent is not equal to 2. Its exponent is equal to 4. Therefore, it is not a quadratic equation. Next one, we have 3a squared minus 4a to the fourth power minus 5a is equal to 0. Is it a quadratic equation or not? Alright, very good. That is correct. The correct answer is not quadratic because also the exponent highest degree of polynomial is equal to 4. Therefore, it is not quadratic equation. So that's how we classify whether the following equation is quadratic or not based on their degree of polynomial. In a quadratic equation, the degree must be equal to 2 and the equation must be equal to 0. Now, let's discuss the standard form of quadratic equation. So, ano ba yung standard form ng quadratic equation natin? That is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Let's identify the parts of the quadratic equation. So, this one is called the quadratic term. So, tatandaan nyo lang na ang quadratic term, yun yung term na merong exponent na 2. Then, yung bx natin is called the linear term. Yung linear term, yun yung term na merong exponent na 1. Then, yung c natin dito, ito yung term na tinatawag na constant term. So, tatandaan lang natin sa constant term, it is the one without a variable. So, ibig sabihin, number lang siya. Wala siyang kasamang variable. Then, tatandaan din natin sa standard form of quadratic equation, dapat ito ay naka-arrange in descending order. Meaning to say, from the highest up to the lowest exponent, magsisimula tayo sa pinakamataas na exponent, pababa. And then, nasa dulo yung equal 0. So, this is the standard form of the quadratic equation. Kumuha tayo ng mga ilang examples na ginamit natin kanina sa pag-classify kung quadratic or not para i-illustrate natin tong quadratic equation na to. So the first one is x squared plus 4x plus 9 is equal to 0. Let's identify which is the quadratic term. So obviously, ang quadratic term natin dito ay yung x squared. The one with the degree of 2 is called the quadratic term. Therefore, x squared is the quadratic term. And yung 4x natin, yung merong exponent na 1 sa variable is called the linear term. And then yung walang kasamang variable na 9 is called the constant term. And also, pag a-identify natin yung numerical coefficient ng quadratic equation, yung numerical coefficient na a, ito yung number na katabi or numerical coefficient na katabi ng x squared. So, pag x lang, automatically, that is equal to 1. Yung b naman, ito yung numerical coefficient ng linear term natin. So, ano yung katabi ng x dito? That is equal to 4. Therefore, b is equal to 4. And then, yung c natin, for the value of c, ito lang yung value ng constant term natin. And that is equal to 9. Let's have this example, y squared minus 6 is equal to 0. This is also a quadratic equation. So, ano yung magiging quadratic term natin? Ang quadratic term natin will be y squared kasi ang exponent niya ay 2. What will be the linear term? So, makikita natin dito sa ating equation, wala siyang linear term. So, lalagay lang natin na wala siyang linear term. Then sa ating constant term, Ito yung term na walang kasamang variable, so negative 6 will be the constant term. Pag i-identify na natin yung kanilang mga numerical coefficient, A will be equal to 1, then B will be equal to 0 kasi nga walang linear term na y, and then C will be equal to negative 6. Ngayon naman, let's have an example of quadratic equation that is not yet written in standard form. Ang gagawin natin siyang standard form. So let's have this first example. So the first case is when the leading coefficient A is a fraction. 1 over 3n squared plus 2n is equal to 4. So this is a quadratic equation because it has a degree of 2. Now, paano natin siya gagawing standard form of quadratic equation? So first thing we need to do is we need to multiply this both sides by 3. Titingnan natin yung denominator ng fraction. So 1/3 is the fraction, yung numerical coefficient ng ating quadratic term. So ang denominator ay 3. So kung 3 yung denominator, imumultiply natin siya both sides para makancel natin yung fraction dito. Kasi 3 times 1 is equal to 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. So matitira na lang is n squared. Then 3 times 2n will be equal to 6n. Then 3 times 4 will be equal to 12. So ang magiging standard equation natin is n squared plus 6n is equal to 12. And then ang kailangan na lang natin gawin dito is to transpose positive 12 to the other side of the equation. So positive 12 will be equal to negative 12. So the standard equation is n squared plus 6n minus 12 is equal to 0. And then pwede na nating i-identify kung ano yung quadratic term. Ang quadratic term natin ay n squared. Ang ating linear term is 6n at ang ating constant term ay negative 12. Ang value ng A ay equal sa 1. Ang value ng B ay equal sa 6 at ang value ng C ay equal sa negative 12. Next case is when the quadratic equation is not equal to 0. So we have this example, a squared is equal to 225. Ang kailangan lang natin gawin is to transpose this number. So from positive 225, it will become negative 225. So the equation will be a squared minus 225 is equal to 0. So it is now written in standard form. So pwede nating makuha yung quadratic term which is a squared. Yung linear term natin nawawala yung term na a, so therefore there is no linear term. And then yung c natin, yung constant term, yung term na walang kasamang variable is equal to negative 225. Yung numerical coefficient ng quadratic term natin is equal to 1. Yung linear term natin ay equal sa 0 at ang ating constant term is equal to negative 225. Yung next case naman natin is kapag yung leading coefficient niya is negative. So paano yung gagawin natin para maging standard form siya? So let's have an example. Negative 5x squared minus 7x is equal to 0. So the thing we need to do here is we need to divide this or multiply this both sides by negative 1. So para maging positive siya, we will multiply it by negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 5x squared will be equal to positive 5x squared. Negative 1 times negative 7x will be equal to positive 7x. And then negative 1 times 0 will be equal to 0. Therefore, the quadratic equation or the standard form of the quadratic equation is 5x squared plus 7x is equal to 0. And we can now identify the value of a, b, and c. So a will be equal to 5. Kung ano yung numerical coefficient, yun yung magiging a. Numerical coefficient ng linear term, yun yung magiging b, which is equal to 7. At yung c natin nawawala. So obviously, yung constant term natin dito ay equal sa 0. Quadratic term, 5x squared. Linear term, 7x. And constant term is missing or equal sa 0. Next one, for the fourth case, when it is in factored form. Makikita nyo dito sa example natin, r times the quantity r plus 4 minus 7r is equal to 0. So this is written in factored form. So paano gagawin natin? So we need to simplify it first para maging quadratic equation siya. So r times r will be equal to r squared. R times 4 will be equal to 4r. bring down negative 7r is equal to 0. And then the next step we need to do is we need to combine like terms. 4r minus 7r is equal to negative 3r. So once you have arranged this in descending order and equated it by 0, naka-standard equation na siya. So the standard equation of this quadratic equation is r squared minus 3r is equal to 0. Next, let's have our last example when it is in factored form pa rin para maintindihan maigi. So we have 3a minus 2 times the quantity 2a minus 3 is equal to 10. So paano gagawin natin dito? So we will apply distributive property. So 3a times 2a is equal to 6a squared. Then 3a times negative 3 is equal to negative 9a. And then negative 2 times 2a is equal to negative 4a. And then negative 2 times negative 3 will be equal to positive 6. And then bring down mo lang yung 10. Combine like terms. So ang like terms natin is yung ating dalawang linear term. So negative 9a minus 4a is equal to negative 13a. Pagkatapos, yung positive 10, itatranspose natin to the other side of the equation. Positive 10, it will become negative 10. And then 6 minus 10 will be equal to negative 4. So therefore, our quadratic equation written in standard form is 6a squared minus 13a minus 4 is equal to 0. So once nakasulat na yung quadratic equation natin in standard form, madali nating ma-identify kung ano yung quadratic term. Ang quadratic term dito ay 6a squared. Makukuha din natin yung ating linear term which is negative 13a at yung constant term which is negative 4. Same goes with their respective numerical coefficient. A is equal to 6, B is equal to negative 13, and C is equal to negative 4.